started being interested in history because of family talks, which isn't that common in non-Jewish German families, that they do a lot of family talk on the time of the Nazi era. But in our family, we did. And that had to do with the fact that we were split into a West German and East German family. One of my great-grandparents were liberated in the concentration camp of Sachsenhausen. He was a communist resistance fighter, and he decided to move from West Germany, from the American occupational zone, to the Soviet sector. And he was part of the erection of the GDR, of the foundation of the GDR, of the German Democratic Republic of East Germany then. Being engaged in history always also meant to question society and the transparency and the democracy and how an open society deals with its history was always for me a test in how far that society is open, transparent, and democratic. It was built in 1914-15 as one of the biggest villas, one of the biggest houses in that neighborhood that was created around the turn of the century. Rich Berlin inhabitants moved to the outskirts of the city. It is about 20 kilometers from the city center. And the whole neighborhood consists of villas and of beautiful houses of rich people. But this one is indeed the biggest. It is also the biggest park around the house. Built in 1914-15, it was sold in 1921 to a second private owner who was one of the most renowned managers of the Weimar Republic of the time after the First World War and before Hitler came. He was in close ties, in close talks with right extremists in the Weimar Republic already. And that is why he sold his house when he was in financial troubles in 1940. He sold his house to the SS, to the most important Nazi terror organization. And they made it a guest house. The House of the Wannsee Conference remained in West Berlin, and the house was indeed first used by Soviet soldiers because they were the ones liberating Berlin in April and May 1945, and in July 1945, American soldiers took over the house. They took over that sector of the town, the southwest of Berlin, Steglitz-Zehlendorf, and they used the house also as a sort of guest house. They housed troops there. And the interesting thing in 1945 is that those soldiers that were housed in the House of the Wannsee Conference were former German Jewish refugees. German Jewish refugees that were expelled in the 30s, that became American citizens, became American soldiers, and re-entered Germany as interrogators for war criminals. As they were of German mother tongue, they were trained to interrogate Nazi war criminals. The house was a youth hostel. From 1953 to 1988, it was used as a youth hostel for West Berlin downtown district. So this is only, so to speak, our third permanent exhibition, opened in 2020. And in the exhibition, we show the story of the Holocaust, of the discrimination against Jews, the persecution and murder, and what followed after 1945. How did Germany in East and West, but also how did the international community deal with the Nazi past? That is part of the exhibition. And in the center of the exhibition, of course, stands the Wannsee Conference. We, so to speak, show that history through the prism, as we say, through the prisma of the Wannsee Conference. When he talks to Heydrich, his focus is on the industry and on, especially on the war industry, and how it will function with an ongoing deportation of forced laborers of his industry. He says at the Wannsee Conference, we have that in the minutes indeed, that is what Eichmann, Adolf Eichmann, who took the notes of the Wannsee Conference, wrote down. He tells the conference and he tells Heydrich that he has skilled laborers, Jewish forced laborers in his industry, and that if you deport them now in January 1942, this will cause a lack of skilled workers, and we will have to look into that and not indifferentially deport everyone that we can get hold of. And Heydrich understands and says, and that is also in the minutes, yes, we will take care of that. Willem Stuckart, he is very engaged in the question of definition. And that is something that he does all along the Nazi time. He is in office in 1933. He is even becoming the Minister of the Interior himself at the very end of the German Reich in April 1945. So he is, together with the Nazi government, he is the inside of the Nazi government all through Nazi time, and he designs a way of defining a Jew in 1935 with the Nuremberg laws. The Nuremberg laws are the you could say founding laws of racist Nazi Germany, and it is defined that everyone that has 3 or 4 grandparents that are Jewish is to be fully Jewish. Everyone that has 2 Jewish grandparents is to be defined as a half Jew. And somebody who is a quarter Jew is defined, somebody who has 1 Jewish grandparent is defined to be a quarter Jew. And this is important for the conference for 20th of January 1942, because now it is about killing these people. And should you also kill a quarter Jew? Should you do something with a half Jew? If you had the idea, the Nazi ideological idea of a Jewish blood that had to be separated from the non-Jewish blood, what do you do with a person that is filled in 1/2 with Jewish blood? So that is... They deal with the genocide as a sort of normal government action. And that is what many of us historians call unprecedented in history, that we see a government session, state secretaries of a government sitting together in a very peaceful surrounding in that beautiful villa at Wannsee, taking their time to discuss thoroughly with their various skilled perspectives on government a genocide of what they planned, the killing of 11 million European Jews. Having a breakfast afterwards. Imagine, they are being invited, the invitation letter has also survived the time, to have this mass murder talk, accompanied by breakfast, mit anschließendem Frühstück. And this is so cruel, this is so gruesome, that we call it unprecedented. And the conference takes place at a point of time where the killing industry, where the mass killing, where the genocide is already on. At the beginning of December 1941, there is also a killing camp, the camp of Chełmno in the neighborhood of Łódź, the Polish town of the German-occupied Polish town of Łódź. there is also a killing camp already in action. There are gas chambers that are being employed there, and there are, at Auschwitz, for example, there are tests of using the Zyklon B, the gas that they would use then to kill millions of people there. That is already in a testing phase. So you do not need the Wannsee Conference to radicalize, to escalate the genocide. This seems a bit strange because we stress the importance of the Wannsee Conference, and we see the importance of the Wannsee Conference as a government session in the center in Berlin, but at what you could call the periphery, at the places where you have the war in Eastern Europe, in the occupied Soviet Union, mass executions that take place there, but also with the camps that are already organized for a mass killing of people that are going to be brought there. In the periphery, this is already going on. You do not need a Wannsee Conference for that. And the one that represents the Foreign Office in 1942 at the Wannsee Conference, he is being arrested during Nazi time itself in January 1943. He is not a resistance fighter. He's not anti-Nazi. The cause of his arrest is that he stands on the wrong side of a Nazi inside battle, you could say. But he is imprisoned, so he is no longer able to clean his files when his Reich in 1945 is going under, and so his personal file that he has on his desk with the most important documents that he used, the file that he himself called Endlösung der Judenfrage, final solution of the Jewish question. That file is not touched, and so the minutes survive inside that file, hundreds of pages on the final solution of the Jewish question inside that file. And embedded in that file are the Wannsee Conference minutes, the invitation to the Wannsee Conference, how the Foreign Office prepared for the Wannsee Conference, and the conference minutes itself. That in Berlin, it is the place where the German archives have their Berlin Dependance today in Lichterfelde, that there are vast amounts of papers and files. They are being cited and searched through by prosecutors for the Nuremberg trials. And a British prosecutor indeed finds this file of the Foreign Office and the final solution of the Jewish question, and is, so to speak, electricized by the inside of the file, and immediately hands it over to Robert Kempner. Robert Kempner is the chief American prosecutor for the Nuremberg trials. In 1961 then, that when Adolf Eichmann is captured in Argentina, that is in 1960, and when he is brought to Jerusalem by Israeli Secret Service, that he starts talking about the Wannsee Conference very much. So in his trial in Jerusalem in 1945, where the minutes are also handed over to the Jerusalem court, Eichmann talks a lot about the Wannsee Conference. When being confronted with the minutes, he talks a lot about the Wannsee Conference because it fits into his defense strategy. Adolf Eichmann claims in Jerusalem that he has only been a very small servant and that he didn't take any own initiative and that he only took orders, which is not true. But for the Wannsee Conference, it's true. He was indeed the one lowest in rank that participated in the Wannsee Conference, and he only took the minutes, so to speak. But he prepared Heydrich for the conference. The minutes are, if you want, are his work that he had already done in advance by writing a speech, by delivering the figures, by having already started the organization of the Holocaust. And so with Eichmann on trial in Jerusalem, the minutes become how do you say, become vivid. Huh? The Haus was founded as an educational site and opened as an educational site, as I mentioned, only in January 1992. And the idea was to use the Haus as a place of education for professional groups, for groups who question their profession in the light of a genocidal and a most terrible history. If you have those state secretaries, those academically trained, many of them with a doctor's degree. It's Dr. Wilhelm Stuckart. If you have these people sitting around a desk planning a genocide, how could it come to that? How did we get there? And so we tried to teach, if you want, critical thinking for various professions, because these